Hello, my friends. Diane asked me to continue our discussion of centering prayer, and the theme that I'm approaching today is centering prayer and the healing of the unconscious. I was first introduced to centering prayer by a nun at a business meeting that I went to, and she was saying to us, this form of prayer, centering prayer, don't start it if you don't want your life to utterly change. And I thought to myself, don't start it. I've never heard a nun tell me not to pray. and so I was intrigued with that. Over the course of the years, I had been practicing this as a prayer form, and I have found it to be true that my life has utterly changed. Now, whether that would have happened anyway, who knows? But there are many ways of praying in our Catholic tradition, and this is a form that's being rediscovered. It's centuries old. It might have been the form that Jesus used primarily when he went to a silent place to get away from everyone and to just be still and be present to his Father, to his Abba. But the recovery of the tradition comes from this, the ages of St. John of the Cross and St. Teresa of Avila and that whole movement that seemed to really relish this prayer form. It's a simple prayer form, but perhaps not easy, and we struggle with it. I'll suggest why. It's because of what we'll be focusing on here today. Centering prayer invites us to sit. We can be by ourselves. We can be in the middle of an airport. We can be anywhere that inner silence becomes the priority, but outer silence helps. So you can do it in the midst of a busy family. I've known families that just tell their children, okay, you go color now or whatever, and mom and dad or mom is just going to sit in the prayer room and for 20 minutes and I'll be right back with you. And that usually seems to be something that children understand and appreciate. In fact, we've had a lot of success with just teaching children a form of centering prayer. It's kind of like the nun telling me, don't do this. You know, if you tell your children, now I'm going to challenge you to be quiet for 10 minutes and see if they can do that. They'll probably want to do it just to please you or to use it as a kind of trial, you know. So however we get here, we get here. But the first dimension of it is that we are with ourselves. It's an interior form of prayer. It's a prayer of silence. It's a type of Christian meditation, different from, let's say, Buddhist meditation, which tends to concentrate on breath or a type of technique. Centering prayer is not necessarily something that has a technique. And the main part of it is that we choose, our intention is to be present to God. It's that simple. But to be present to God, of course, means being present to ourselves. And what do we find when we are present to ourselves? We find a lot of people tell me, I just can't sit still. I can't quiet my mind. It's impossible. I'm thinking too many things. And then sometimes people think they aren't successful in centering prayer because I can't stop thinking. I've tried. And let me reassure you that the goal is not to stop thinking. To stop thinking means that we're probably dead. The thinking process is something that alive people are experiencing all the time, even when we're in a type of Christian prayer and meditation and silence. So our thoughts are always with us. Centering prayer helps us to deal with our thoughts, to let go of those thoughts, to see where those thoughts are coming from, to examine those thoughts, but even to set all that aside, because that can come later after what emerges from centering prayer. But what we get in touch with in centering prayer, why it's difficult at times, because our thoughts are going to come from the unconscious primarily. They may come from the conscious, but initially it's going to come from the unconscious. Just correcting my spelling there. All those feelings that we have. When we sit by ourselves and we sit alone, we start feeling things. And we start getting in touch with our feelings. We're not being so busy or trying to cover all our bases through activity. And a lot of our activity is just busyness, let's face it. And a lot of our thinking really is just busyness also. So we need to become comfortable with that, which is very difficult in our culture and in our society, because we think we're supposed to be doing things, we're supposed to be achieving things. And so when we're just sitting with ourselves and with our God in silence, so much is stirred up that makes it feel like it might be not possible to do this much longer. I'm going crazy. We can go crazy when we get in touch with, and I mean that not in the literal sense, when suddenly I feel what I'm feeling, my fears, my resentments, my worries, my hurt, my desires, and we might think, how is this prayer? How this is prayer is that we turn all this over then to God. You know, whatever I'm feeling during centering prayer, whatever I'm thinking, I let go of. We use a sacred word, which is suggested, such as Abba or love or something. And when we find ourselves thinking or we find ourselves feeling, that's often what we miss when we are trying to share with people how to do centering prayer. It's about our feelings too. And so as feelings emerge, we sense what that is and we let that go. Also, we turn it over to God. So there we are with ourselves, with God. There we are. And what's going to emerges. And what I do with that is I give it to God. I give my whole self to God. That's what that means. Including all of these unconscious fears, resentments, worries, hurts, desires. And I let go of my control of life. And just sitting in the chair is one of the first movements of letting go of control of my life. Just remembering to get to the chair. That can be the hardest movement we make in our whole lives, but in the whole day too. There are days that go by where I can't get to the chair. I don't want to face myself. Because facing myself, being with God means that, and turning it over means I'm not in control, and that then things could change. So remember, if you don't want your life to utterly change, if you're perfectly happy, if you have no fears, resentments, worries, hurts, or desires, all that's going fine, then this prayer may not be for you. For many of us, though, this is what's going on in our inner lives. And so we need the healing of this so that it moves from overwhelming us, it moves from controlling us through the unconscious so that we just are experiencing knee-jerk reactions to life. Instead of that, instead of losing sleep at night, and instead of this approaching our day with apprehension, we gradually move our unconscious, subconscious feelings and desires and stuff become transformed as God touches them. Consider this. We present the bread and the wine at Mass through the power of the Holy Spirit to God. What happens when we present that bread and that wine to God during Mass? It's changed. It's utterly transformed. It becomes the body and blood of Christ. Whatever is totally exposed to God is totally transformed. So as we totally expose ourselves to God, the possibility exists that we become transformed. Why do we want to be transformed? Again, well, we might want some help with these feelings, but we also want our joy to be complete. And we want more happiness. We want more joy. Joy is the word that's used in Scripture usually as an adjective more often than other words to describe what the experience of being a Christian should lead to. And joy is this deep satisfaction, this wonder, this delight, becoming like children again, approaching our world with gratitude. That is the lifestyle of a Catholic Christian. The goal is also to have integrity in our lives, to have peace in our life, to have meaning and purpose. We can be very busy and not know what we're doing at all. And we think this is what we're supposed to be doing because society tells us this, or our family influences us. We might become a little codependent on other people's nervousness or expectations. So as we bring all of this into the presence of God, and it's touched as the bread and wine are exposed at the liturgy, so all of this then can be touched by God. We do a lot of talking traditionally in our prayer forms in the Catholic tradition, and that's good. Talking helps the community to pray together when we have prayers in common. And our own prayer lives, even the Rosary is a type of meditative prayer, of course. We're repeating the Hail Mary, not so much to concentrate on each word of the Hail Mary, but to get a rhythm going that releases us from thinking so much and being able to reflect on the mysteries of Christ. In other words, to encounter God and to let ourselves turn ourselves over to God that we might find more peace. So there's a lot in common between centering prayer and the Catholic tradition of praying the Rosary. So as I let go of all this stuff, that might be a word that I want to put in here. We let go. We surrender. In our culture, especially if you're a male, the word surrender is very scary. It can mean I'm not right. It doesn't mean I'm giving up. Jesus talks about surrender. He says it just makes sense if there's a bigger army coming towards you to sue for peace. A bigger army than me is my unconscious and all of the demons, if you will, that can be running around in there. And to discover that in the silence of centering prayer and to let that go, to surrender, to give that to God consciously then. So as I become conscious of my feelings and what's going on in me, I'm able to choose again to give that over to God. And so it's a cycle. And so as more and more becomes conscious of who I really am and who I am in relationship with God, I can more consciously let go and surrender and move towards integrity, peace, meaning, purpose, joy in my life. If you'd like more peace, more joy, more meaning in life, then centering prayer is certainly a prayer form that you might like to explore. Now, it doesn't just happen automatically. We're not doing it to try to get stuff. It's a grace from God. All prayer is a grace from God. It's a gift from God. Prayer is what comes from God first. And then the second part of it is our response to that gift. Our response to that gift of God's presence in our lives is, here I am, Lord. Here I am to just be here with you. Let's see what happens. And I encourage anyone that's wondering about this prayer form to give it a try and see what happens. I might not experience total peace or meaning or delight or joy in my life at that very moment, although certainly I might be calmed down from the busyness of my day or whatever. But over the course of years, miraculous changes can occur and insights that we bring the experience of centering prayer to live in our lives then. And we discover that, as St. Paul says, our lives become a constant kind of form of prayer, a constant gratitude and surrender and discovery of meaning and purpose and joy in the totality of our life. So centering prayer moves from just taking that 20 minutes twice a day, start with once a day, start with 10 minutes if 20 is too daunting, and then that becomes an awareness. So what's happening here is a type of an awareness, a type of attentiveness to life and all of its wonder and all of its challenge and disappointments too, and how to cope and deal with that as a Christian in more mature ways. So I'd just like to conclude that the other name for this prayer, this fashion of prayer we call centering prayer, is called divine therapy. The divine therapy. So I'm asking God to heal me, to take care of me, to lead me and guide me, and to really touch what's going on in my life as I deliver that to God, as I turn that over, and make of me a new creation. Continue your healing, by your healing presence, continue to transform me in my heart and my understanding and my perception of the world, and that I might move from blaming and resentment and criticizing and judging into, again, more wonder and delight and more love. When we turn our lives over to the care of God, when we surrender to God just by sitting and being present and being still, we are trusting God then, of course. I mean, we have to have a good concept of who God is, a good experience of God. So maybe this would help lead us, if we haven't had that this might be another avenue of leading us through this divine healing to an understanding and appreciation that God is love, and love is going to heal. It might challenge us to a degree. It might get us out of our compulsivity and our addictions to our negative or difficult emotions. No emotion is negative per se. Some are extremely difficult. We become addicted to those as coping mechanisms and lifestyles. But we are healed by God who is love, and that is why we call it the divine therapy. God doing for me what I can't do for myself. working at the deepest levels of my being and my spirit to touch me and to transform me and to heal me, that I might touch and transform and heal others in return. God bless you.